Hi, how are you going? It's Jo Williams speaking, and today we're talking about the ego versus the soul and what it means to understand them in your lifetime as being a human. So, first I'll introduce myself. My name is Jo. I'm an intuitive energetic healer, and I work with people on aligning them to the truth or to their truth of what things are and how things look for them in this lifetime. Hi Alicia, how are you? Nice to see you. I'm really looking forward to speaking today about this topic. It's a really big topic. It's been a very big one in my life throughout my life's work and the study I've done on myself as a human and as a soul. And the one thing that comes through very strongly is that it's all very well to understand the ego, and it's all very well to understand the soul, but unless you're able to bring the understanding of the two together and live in harmony as a human being, all the knowledge in the world won't be very helpful. Okay, so another word for the ego would be the head. So you've got ego versus soul, head versus heart, I guess lies versus truth. So the first thing I want to talk about with you is what the actual ego is. When you come into the earth, it's almost like the earthly plane has a way of completely taking away or removing your connection with spirit. So it almost allows you to forget who you are in your true self, your real self. And so then what you do in your lifetime is, throughout experiences both good and bad, you learn to perceive the truth of all that is, or the truth of who you are, and you start to understand your light being or your light self as your soul, and then you start to have more of a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening. Again, it's really important that you understand, as much as you may know about the spiritual side of things, if you can't interact or interweave them into being human, neither one is helpful. There's no point in being full of knowledge or full of soul if you can't bring them together and have them being in harmony whilst being a human being. So all the knowledge in the world won't help you if you don't know how to be still and one within yourself. Okay, so the ego and the soul versus the soul and understanding them. Okay. As always, I always have my little notebook here, and I always write down the messages that I'm receiving or notes that I need to talk about later. It really helps me to stay focused and clear. And the messages I get seem to get downloaded very quickly. So if you bear with me, I'll try and bring them through in a way that is the most understanding for you guys. Okay, so the ego. So the ego is basically our limiting beliefs. So when you come into Earth as a human being, you almost get like a hood or a capping that takes place that stops you from having a connection with your true self, with your soul. And then throughout life, the experience that you experiences take place in order for you, that capping or that hood to come off and for you to see your true self. Now, for some people, it's easier for some people than it is for others, although it is available to everyone. Everyone has a soul, and everyone has the ability to see themselves, their true self. It's not like only available to some people. It is available to everyone. It just depends on how open or awake you are, or how willing you are to look at the things that you need to look at, which will take that hood off or take that mask off to show who you really are. So when you come to Earth and that takes place, you develop what's called an ego. And an ego is something that keeps you on Earth in the illusion of Earth and keeps you almost trapped, I suppose, from seeing the truth. However, once you recognize the truth, then it's about creating a balance and harmony to bring the truth into the ego world or into the earthly plane so that you can live as your true divine self whilst being human. So the ego comes in when you arrive on earth, and what happens is intelligence or knowledge type information builds up so that the ego creates an identity. So for example, someone who is in their ego would be speaking, I'm just going to say what I'm getting, and then it will all hopefully come out and make sense in the long run, okay? So someone who's in their ego would be speaking untruths. So basically, the identity of the self has created thousands, millions, billions of beliefs. And the beliefs create an identity. And the identity then believes that it's actually a living, breathing, functioning thing, which we call the ego. And the ego thinks that it's a real person. It thinks that it actually exists, when in fact it's an illusion based on untruths. But there are so many untruths that it actually thinks it's a functioning thing, so a functioning person. So for example, when someone's in their ego, they might not know they're in their ego because they honestly believe what they're saying or what they're hearing or what they're experiencing is the truth. It's only when someone is able to shed light or show them the truth of their ego, so they show them they're in their ego and the person is open to seeing and receiving the truth, that illusion will start to break down. Okay, so that's the ego. The ego is basically a series of belief systems that are based on not the truth, that create an identity. That's the ego. So it's lies, I suppose, or lies is a harsh word. It's what's another word for it? Like being asleep. So the soul is the truth. The soul is in its entirety is the true form of who you are, of what there is. The soul is a part of the whole being the universe, also known as God, equaling love. So you have, when you come into earth, you have an ego which keeps you on earth, and you have the soul, which is the truth of all that is, the truth of all you are, and it's a part of all that is. And then, okay, so we've got the ego, which is like lies, versus the soul, which is the truth. Okay, this is quite a deep subject. So I'll tell you what I'm getting, but there's probably, we could go deeper and deeper and deeper depending on how deep Spirit wants us to go. I also wanted to say, it's breaking up. Is it breaking up? I also just wanted to say thank you to Melvin for the subject. Thank you for offering that we took today. Let's have a look. So, okay, so first of all, you need to accept that the ego is based on the untruth or untruths, and that the soul is based on the truth. And you first need to come into acceptance that perhaps you might be living your life based on a false reality. And once you're able to understand that you may be holding a false reality or a false version of the truth, then you're able to understand the truth. So what I want to talk about is more, not so much about the ego and the soul, is more about how to manage both things whilst being human. So you guys are here to have a human experience. Your soul's choosing to come to earth to have a human experience. And you're choosing to come to earth to have a human experience to understand the self. So to understand the soul. So in life, you have experiences. So basically as a soul, you don't feel, it just is. You just are. You're just one. But you know that, but it isn't a knowing like the humans have the knowing. And then when you come to earth, you get how do I explain it? Like a knowing. You get feelings and how do I explain it? You can feel experiences on a different level or a different plane to how the universe or God or the soul feels experiences. So the soul has chosen to have a human experience to understand itself on a level that it couldn't before, because it hasn't been through the human experience. So human experience allows us to feel pain. It allows us to feel pain. It also allows us to feel joy. So because it allows you to feel good and bad, pain and happy, that's giving you polar opposites so that the soul can understand itself. It's like the soul, say, is light or white, but it doesn't know that it's white, so it creates dark. And then in order to understand the dark, it creates green. In order to understand green, it creates, say, yellow. And in order to understand yellow, it creates blue. And in order to understand blue, it creates light blue, and so goes on. So the universe is constantly expanding itself to understand itself. And the human experience is one of the experiences that it's choosing to have so that the light, the soul, can understand itself. Okay, so on Earth, being a human being, you're going to experience both light and dark. And these experiences or these feelings that you have happen so that you can awaken to the truth of all that is. And then when you awaken to the truth of all it is and to the truth of who you are, and you've learnt the lesson of the lesson of light, I suppose, understanding yourself in more light than you understood yourself before when you were just part of the universe, then you don't need to come back here anymore. Then you've done the human experience. It's kind of like then you've reached year 12 and you can go back and you can start another experience somewhere else. So you don't want to be on Earth as a human just in your ego, but you also don't want to be just in your soul. So you find some people are so heavy and dense in their ego that there's no soul. But then you'll also find people who are so in their soul and so light that they're not human. They're almost not here. They're not grounded. And so it's important as a human being that you understand balance and how to see or manage both with self-awareness. And you find that self-awareness through, so this is such a deep conversation to have. So I hope everyone's keeping up with what I'm saying. It's coming through. It's going to keep going. It feels like it's going to keep getting deeper. So, so you want to create balance. And you create balance. I guess it's important to say that Mel was asking the question for me to answer, for me to explain the difference between or understanding the soul versus the ego and how to have more balance or how to understand the two. You can't have one without the other on Earth. They both exist, okay? You can't just be all in your soul and you can't just be all in your ego. What you need to find is a way of experiencing Earth through balance. So finding your center in the chaos, and then understanding that each experience is there to shed another layer off you so that you can find the light within. Okay, so you need to find some form of practice that will make you be still. So for a lot of people that's meditation, but it's important for you to understand that meditation isn't just found in meditating. Meditation may be found. The reason why I'm looking down is because I'm writing on my pad. It's really important that you guys keep a notepad with you at all times, because when you're processing and when you're asking to speak to your higher self or the truth, the light, what you're actually doing is you're allowing an opening or a gateway to take place for that information to come through. But often it's really hard for that information to come through if you're clouded or crowded by false truths, which we call the ego. And so it's important that you have an outlet, which for me a lot of the time is a notepad and pen, so that you can write down the truth that you're receiving, and you can start to learn and understand the difference between the ego versus the higher self, or the ego versus the soul. It really is the truth versus the dark, the truth versus lies. So I wanted to make it really clear that as a human being, you're here to have experiences, and the more experiences you have, the more it shows you the light, the more it shows you of who you are. Until you recognize who you are, you recognize you're of the light, and then you no longer need to have these experiences in order to show you the truth. So I'm just writing down now ways in which you can find your center. So I've got here meditation. Well, that's one way. What's another way? Gardening, swimming, art. If anyone has any ways that they find their center and be still, art, music. It's kind of a way of finding God while still being in this lifetime, or while still being human. Okay, so you need to find a way of balancing out both the good and the bad, the happy and the sad. It's important that you balance out a way for you in your life so that when your ego or your mind starts talking, you're able to find stillness and silence in the chaos. Because we live in a world that is based on an illusion, and the illusion is untruths. The illusion is layers of belief systems that builds up an ego, and the ego is then an identity that believes in itself. It's important that whilst we're all a part of the earth, we're able to find a place within ourselves to sit still to hear the truth. And then when you're able to find the truth within all things, you need to also be able to balance the truth with being human. Because what can take place is you become so connected to the spiritual that you're not functioning in the physical, because you're against or not for this way of living, or for this way of being in your soul. So you need to find what's the word? You need to find peace within your heart in order to stay present in a world that's full of lies. Okay. All right, let's have a look. What else is coming through? Okay, does everybody understand what I'm saying? It's a really complex thing to explain like this, but I'm gonna bring it through the best I can. So, okay, we understand that the ego is belief systems that are based on lies, and that the more belief systems you have, or the more belief systems society has, or the more belief systems planet Earth has that are based on an illusion or a lie, the bigger the ego. But it's also important to understand that you can live peacefully and happily on Earth, even though there is a lot of ego or bullshit going around. And the way you do that is, it's kind of like, imagine Earth or life is like a big river system. It's a big stream, and it's going along, and you can either jump in and be a part of that stream and part of that chaos and a part of what's all the mess and the logs and the crap that's taking place, or you can just step back and sit on the edge of the stream and watch the stream or the river flowing past, but you don't need to be a part of it. So you can stay on Earth and avoid living in an ego system. And you do that by finding peace within yourself. So you do that by finding your center. So you will find your center by sitting still. And sitting still can mean a number of things for many people. So let me just ask, okay, so you want to get to a point where you're able to sit still in the silence of yourself, so that you're able to observe the ego and observe the higher self, but be still and present. Be still and present amongst them. So it's unnatural to think that you're going to be 100% soul because you're living in a human world, or 100% ego because you're living in a human world as a soul. What you need to do is you need to find your truth and a balance within the two. I'm just looking at something. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Thank you. I just wanted to check on something. So the question that Mel was asking me to answer today was just how you tell the difference between soul or the higher self and the ego, and how to know when the ego or when the higher self is talking to you, and how to get more trust, in listening to your higher self. So basically, your ego sounds like, it's telling me the ego sounds like hell on earth. The ego sounds like confusion. The ego sounds like lies. The ego sounds like unhappiness. The ego sounds like very heavy. It's trying to bring you down. And the ego will last a long time. So in order to be a healthy human being, you need to experience your emotions. You need to experience what you're feeling. And a lot of the time, the ego can be misunderstood for your emotions and your feelings, which isn't the case. So if you allow yourself to experience your emotions and your feelings, then you will allow the feeling to come up and to go down like a wave, like the tide. It comes in, it comes out. And you will find that if you allow yourself to experience the hurt, the pain, the happiness, the joy that's coming in, It will come in, it will peak, and it will go back down. Whereas if you're in your ego, the feeling doesn't subside. The anger will come up, and then it will stay up, and it will just continue being up the whole time, and it will actually start destroying you. It will start to bring you down, and life will be almost like a chaotic mess. And you will see it in others when it's happening, but it's important for you to understand that when it happens for you, you might actually not know that it's taking place. You might need somebody else to point that out to you. It takes a lot of observation and self-realization before you can understand whether or not you're in your ego. But you see, it's important to understand also that feelings and emotions are not your ego. They're human. And you need to have your feelings and emotions in order to stay stable and balanced. So the ego sounds nasty, it sounds cruel, it sounds unfair, it goes on, it doesn't stop, it's unrelenting, it's relentless, is that the word? Relentless. Whereas the soul, the higher self, will talk to you, it sounds like peace, it sounds like love, it sounds like kindness, it sounds like happiness, it sounds calm, it sounds reassuring, it sounds beautiful, it sounds firm but kind. So it's constantly saying, come on, when you know you don't feel well, but you're beautiful and you deserve happiness and you deserve some cake. Why don't you have a little sleep and then get up and start your work again? It's kind of like it's the mother you wished you always had. It's kind, it's understanding, it's forgiving, and it's encouraging. The ego is very hating, it's very dark, it's very heavy, it's very lonely, it's very isolating, and it's very long. It doesn't seem to let up. So the way for you to get more trust, the way for you to get more self-love, the way for you to get more balance and understanding in your life is to meditate. It really is. So there are so many forms of meditation. First, you need to understand that you may be in your ego. First, you have to have that understanding that you may not be carrying all the truths that you need for you. It's self-realization. It's kind of having the understanding that you may not be seeing the truth of all that is, and being willing to hear the truth. And then it's sitting still and meditating on the nothing. It's kind of like on the void. So you want to sit and meditate and go to a place that is, let me just ask, so you could ask when you're meditating to be shown the truth of all that is. The truth of all that is. You will also find this space when you are doing things that create a meditative state. So for me, what creates a meditative state for me? I like swimming, drawing is really good, spending time with friends I really like. It's anywhere that you're able to be completely still. So more than welcome for you guys to add in some things that you do on the comments below that help you find your stillness. But it's a place of peace. It's neither happy, it's neither sad. It just is. You're going to the center of the universe. The more centered you are, the more you're in the center of the universe, the more you'll be able to see the truth of all that is. So it'll become very obvious and clear to you what and who is in their ego. So it's not just people that are in their ego. Organizations can be in their ego. Food can be in their ego. Anything can be in their ego. It just means that it's an identity based on untruths. whereas the soul, the higher self, is based on the truth of all that is. One's very heavy and dark, and one's very light. Okay, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask at all about it? It's a really complex subject. It's something that I've spent my life working on understanding and working on myself and having self-realizations to get to the point where I understand it. But the journey is never over. So I want you to understand that even I would be in my ego. I would be in my ego if I told you I knew everything there was to know about all there is. Because you can never know everything there is to know about all there is. So that's the ego. But I'm not in my ego. I'm well aware of the fact that in fact life is a journey, and I'm here to have an experience so that I understand who I am as my true self. So I'm learning to be very open to life's experiences without judgment. It's tough to do, but I'm learning to do it. So I'm learning to feel my emotions without judging my emotions. I'm learning to have life happen to me without trying to control it and being my ego about whether it's good or bad. So let's have a look. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask about the ego versus the higher self, or the ego versus the soul? I just would also like to point out that we're going through a period of time at the moment where it's advanced enlightening, I guess you could call it. So everyone on the earth and the planet is having the opportunity to wake up to themselves, their true selves, which means that they're going to be able to be living as their true self here on earth. And in order to do that, it means you need to face absolutely everything that's in the shadow or the dark. So if some of you out there are going through some horrendously difficult, like torturing times, it's only to show you the light. It's only to show you the opposite of the dark, which is the light, to show you who you are. So if things seem like they're getting worse for you and not better, it is happening, but it's happening to show you the truth of who you are. And then once you understand the truth of who you are and you have an understanding or a handling on that, then you're able to find balance. And when you find balance, then you're able to actually live in this lifetime as your true self or as your soul and experience life on earth as an enlightened human being, or in an enlightened way. Okay, so I feel like I've said a lot on this. Again, it's a really, really, really deep issue. I've explained it in the way it came through. And so if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Perhaps do another video at another time on this subject. And I'm really grateful to Mel, who suggested that I do this, because I think it's important that people have the more understanding, the better. And there's not only one size fits all, you guys. There's going to be more people than just me teaching you or telling you about the truth of all that is. So if you hear it from me and it resonates, fantastic. If you hear it from someone else and it resonates, great. Just go with the flow. Go with what feels correct for you. If it feels light, trust it. If it feels dark, perhaps don't go there. If you know in your heart that you're going through a heavy time, but it's for the good, then trust that as well, because at the moment, everything, absolutely everything, like no pebble is going to go unturned. So absolutely everything that needs to be shown, to have self-realization of it, to be shown in the light, needs to come through. So anything that you're hiding from in your shadow, even if you don't know it's a shadow, is going to come up and be surfaced over the next over the next little while, over the next 12 months. So be very, very, very kind to yourselves. Don't beat yourself up if you recognise that you are in your ego. If you are in your ego and you're speaking out of your belief system or out of the untruths that you've been taught or that society has taught you, it's okay. We're all human. We're all living in the illusion of Earth. We're all under the influence of some form of ego. It's about being able to find balance and understand the truth of all it is. And the more that you sit still in some form of meditation, the more you will see the truth. So again, sitting still for some people might be meditating, for others it might be having a bath, for others it might be gardening, swimming, painting, art, music. Find what is true for you. Find your truth and meditate on that, okay? And then when you meditate on that, you will feel the light and you will feel the dark. And it will become unbearingly obvious to you what is true, what is true and what is false, what is the light and what is the dark, what is lies. And you honestly, no one, including me, is going to be able to hide in our shadows anymore. It's all coming up to be looked at. It's all coming up to be cleared, to be healed. The earth is going through rapid change and transformation, and we are coming into a time of great love, of self-love and understanding and respect. So it starts with the self. If you can go into self, when you look at yourself, if you can go into, I can't think of the word, self, whatever it's called, self-looking, if you look at yourself and you realise the light and dark within yourself, then you'll be able to see it in others. And then when you see it in others, you'll be able to see it in the government. And then if you see it in the government, you'll be able to see it in society. And if you see it in society, then you'll be able to see it on the planet. And then once you get to that point, you're then able to make change because you see it in yourself, then you want to create more light within yourself. And the more light you bring within yourself, then the more light you bring to others. And the more light you bring to others, the more light you bring to the community. And the more light you bring to the community, the more the community grows into the society, into the government. So, yeah. Okay, let me ask you something else. So one more point I wanted to point out was Mel. Thank you for suggesting this subject, this topic. But she also wanted to just ask how to hear and understand animals. And so God, the universe, will speak to you the way you hear your inner voice. And people, they will also talk to you the way you hear your inner voice. So as humans, we've learnt language, and so we usually don't use our sixth sense anymore to communicate. However, your sixth sense is still very much active and able to understand energy as language if you use it. So perhaps to understand animals, you could listen to what your inner voice is saying to you about that certain animal, about that certain thing, because that's how God will talk to you, through your inner voice. And remember, if it sounds dark, if it sounds nasty, if it sounds particularly off-putting, and it's not just a wave of emotion that comes up and then goes down, like it's not just a wave of anger that you feel, you're angry, then it goes off. If it comes up and it stays around for days, weeks or months, that's the ego. The ego is based on a false identity or lies based on mistruths, and it thinks it is a real person. It thinks it is an identity. So it will argue its point over and over and over and over again, trying to have its say, have its way. But once you understand the feeling of what the truth feels like, you will be able to pick up on it, and you just don't give any energy or time to it. And by not giving any energy or time to it, it will dissipate. It understands it needs to sit in the shadows and stay in the background and basically shut up if it wants to stay around. So you need to train yourself to not listen to the ego, and you need to start focusing on the truth of all it is, and you will find the truth of all it is when you sit with yourself. And you need to sit with yourself in times of meditation, because when you meditate, it brings clarity to not only your physical self but your spiritual self. It's like it speaks both languages at the same time. Great. So just wanted to say a big thank you for everyone for tuning in. Really, really, really grateful for you in my life at the moment, and for being able to deliver this work to you guys. Thanks for being so patient and understanding with me and the way the information comes through. Sometimes it comes through all jibbledy, whatever, like, doesn't make a lot of sense to me even, and it's getting it out, and then once it's out, it's making sense of it all. So again, if you have a notepad and pen, I would suggest that you start to write your ideas and your feelings and your what your heart is saying on paper, and then once you have it all out, it will start to make sense. It will start to show itself in a clearer version of you. But you need to get through all of the murkiness in order to find the balance within you, to find the truth within you. The other thing I'm getting is just to be able to be still, in the stillness, without fear. And you do that again by sitting still or by meditating in a way that works for you. Okay? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to leave it on that today. Really grateful again for you guys taking part and for listening. And hopefully I'll shed some light on this confusing topic and interesting place called life and earth. Again, if anyone has a subject they'd like me to speak on or channel on, more than welcome to have a look at it if you pop it in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you again next week. Okay, have a great weekend. See you later. Bye.